Hello everyone, this is part 12 of What If Naruto Got a New Teacher After Training Tease, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. It took 3 days to heal most of the Hyuga. Naruto watched as they all started back into the Hyuga manor that had been repaired during their stay at Naruto's house. He sighed as he watched everyone enter, Hiashi standing next to Hanabi by the door as he looked to Naruto. You know it won't be the same, Hiashi whispers and grips Hanabi's shoulder. She just stands there staring to the ground. Naruto frowned and kneeled in front of the young Hyuga and she slowly looked up at him. Don't worry Hanabi-chan, everything will be okay. I'll have some guards stay near the compound at all times and I will come visit every day to make sure everything is okay. He whispers and Hanabi nods slowly and heads inside with her father. Naruto slowly rises to his feet and watches the gates close behind him as Hinata walks up behind him. That was sweet of you Naruto-kun. She whispers and he turns to face her smiling. Yeah, I mean I have to get your family to like me if I'm gonna be able to marry you. He smirks as her face goes pale white, her cheeks dark red with embarrassment. Marry me. She stutters as she stands there still and then he went to her and kissed her, pulling her close to him with his hands on her arms and her hands rest on his chest. When they part, Naruto's cheeks are a dark red also. He smirked and kissed her nose and took a step back. I have to go back to work, I'll write you at home tonight. He whispers and walks away, leaving Hinata there alone with a hand covering her mouth and her blush darker. Oh Naruto-kun. She whispers and smiles warmly as she started off towards the hospital, not noticing the dark figure hiding in the alley watching her and the gate of the Hyuga. Well, the figure whispered and watched her closely. The Hyuga survived. He whispered as he disappeared into the darkness of the alley. I want you two to go to the sound and check things out there, since Orochimaru escaped before he might have been coming to take Kabuto back from the ANBU's hands. Naruto says and looks to Shikamaru and Jiraiya. I would send Jiraiya alone but I don't trust letting anyone go alone. Naruto slowly turns back to the window with his hands folded behind his back. Shikamaru let out a sigh as he ran a hand through his hair and looked to Naruto. I understand Hokage-sama, but you know how Temari will take it and I might not live to even attend the mission. Shikamaru says and watches Naruto closely. I understand that Shikamaru, and please just use my name, Naruto said and turned to them smiling slightly. I have hope in you too. Understood Naruto. Shikamaru groans and goes out of the office with Jiraiya following him without a word. Jiraiya, Naruto stops and the Sannin stops and looks back at him. No peeping in the onsens, Naruto says and Jiraiya smiles sheepishly. Now why would I do that Hokage-sama? Jiraiya said coyly but Naruto only glared at him. I was stuck with you for 3 years so of course I know your habits and I'd rather not have complaints from women during this crisis. Naruto says and sits down in his chair. He had grown fond of it as he leaned back. So I need your full attention on this mission and none of it on the women. You caught me Hokage-sama, so I guess I have to abide by your rules on this mission so long as I can still continue my ways when I return. Jiraiya says and crosses his fingers behind his back hoping Naruto would not see them. You're dismissed. Naruto says quietly and Jiraiya left without saying another word. He couldn't wait till the trip began. Jiraiya walked proudly along the path towards the eastern gate and where he was to meet Shikamaru for their mission. He knew Naruto had told Shikamaru about his habits and hoped that he would say nothing to Naruto. He stopped and looked back to the village to see Shikamaru walking beside Temari towards them. Temari was yelling at the shadow us for who merely tried to ignore her. You can't just leave. Neji asked you to stay here until everything was sorted out. Temari growls but Shikamaru ignores her yet again. Listen to me Shika, I know what I'm talking about. She growls and stops when she spots Jiraiya. Temari, he'll be fine, I mean he's going with me. Jiraiya smiles and Temari's face becomes pale. She knew what Jiraiya did in his spare time and didn't need her husband's life in this pervert's hands. I'd rather let some cat watch him than some peeping old pervert. Temari starts but Shikamaru quickly covers her mouth and pulls her away. Temari, stop acting like a child. Shikamaru says and faces her. She looks up at his face wondering what he would do if she were to act like a child. You're not going to get your way, he says and holds her upper arms gently in his hands. Now I have to do this because Naruto will feel better if I do. Besides, I'd rather have Hinata and the other Hyuga out of danger, he whispers and pulls her into a hug. Don't worry about it, I'll be back before you know it, he whispers in her ear. I don't trust you being with that pervert, she whispers and he smiles at her. I know he's troublesome but I think we'll be fine. Shikamaru says and kisses her gently before taking a step back away from her. You better not get ked Shikamaru Nara, I'll come and K you again if you don't. Temari says and Shikamaru grins. Well then I'll see you later you troublesome woman. He says before heading over to Jiraiya without saying another word to Temari as the two headed out and started towards the rice country. Be careful Shikamaru, Temari whispers as she watches him disappear from her sight. It took them a few days to reach the town they had planned on staying in but Shikamaru didn't care. He had hid his headband in his clothes as Jiraiya had done and was ready for the mission to begin. He noticed Jiraiya hadn't tried to sneak away once so far so he was relieved. He sighed as he looked out the window. He told Jiraiya he could do the shopping this time so he put his trust in the old man. But as usual Shikamaru had a bad feeling again and he knew it had to do with onsen. Jiraiya smirked as he watched the girls going into the onsen through the bushes he had chosen to hide behind. He had a pencil in one hand and his notebook in the other as he watched the girls enter. He couldn't believe how the sound had the most beautiful girls he had ever seen so his research would soar this time as he smirked. He smiled happily as a red-haired woman with emerald green eyes stepped out and lowered herself into the springs. Jiraiya almost had an instant nosebleed as she set her towel up on a rock showing off her chest which, in Jiraiya's opinion, had to be about a C-cup. He watched her closely as she sunk back into the water and turned to face the other women. Talk was always big in the onsen, which was the one thing Jiraiya normally ignored. So Lord Orochimaru is looking for more women to come join him. A blonde woman said as she ran a hot cloth up her arm showing off her slender figure which had Jiraiya's attention immediately. I was planning on heading up there tomorrow before all the others did, get a personal invitation to his chambers and show him why he would want me to join, a brown-haired woman said and smiled playfully. This had Jiraiya wishing he was in Orochimaru's shoes, having women want to come to him which in turn would help his research. Only if there was someone else we could serve, I mean too many people will be going to Lord Orochimaru and I want to try some other place to live, with shade and green everywhere, the redhead whispers and wraps her arms around her chest as if she were hugging herself. This got Jiraiya's attention. These women wanted to stay somewhere else and it would be in his best interest to help them so he decided as he closed his notebook and put both the book and pencil away that he would have them come with him. Jiraiya watched as the girls strolled out of the onsen building wearing some of the most showing outfits he had ever seen as he noticed them wearing something similar to what Anko and Kurenai used to wear. He smiled as he noticed the girls and approached them slowly. Hello ladies, I thought I might interest you three in a drink. Jiraiya smiles at them and bows slightly. A drink? The brown-haired girl asks and blushes lightly as she folds her hands in front of her. The blonde smiles and looks Jiraiya up and down. His disguise was magnificent. He looked almost like Gaara but he didn't have the tattoo on his forehead and his eyes were an emerald green. We'd love a drink, stranger. The redhead smiles and puts her arm through his as the blonde puts her arm through his other as the brunette puts her arm through the blonde's. Jiraiya leads the way towards the bar ready to start doing his research on a whole new level. They arrived at the small bar minutes later as the girls picked a table and sat around Jiraiya. When the sake came they went through bottle after bottle. Jiraiya was getting dizzy and he could feel the effects within the first 4 bottles, which happened to be very large bottles. The girls smiled and before he knew it they were all over him kissing on his end feeling up his legs. He was in heaven. Finally it was time to head back to the hotel he had been staying at with Shikamaru as he stumbled along. Well lass. Jiraiya hiccups and smirks at the women. You wanna go back with me? He smirks as the blonde puts her hand between Jiraiya's legs and nips his ear. We'd love to, she whispers and leads him towards a back alley. This isn't. Jiraiya starts and looks around the alley. So you like to do it in unusual places. This is new for me, he says and spots the S-boss at the end of the alley. What the? He starts and looks at the women who are standing side by side with the redhead in the middle. Sorry Jiraiya, we have no plan of giving you a good time. We have a job to do for Orochimaru, the redhead says and pulls out a kunai from her boot as the blonde and brunette pull kunai out of their clothes and their hair. Oh, and I thought you ladies were going to treat me right, I mean after my love's death, Jiraiya starts to say but stops when he realizes he was talking about Tsunade. Talking about her made him miss her more and he could now picture her in his arms yet again as the women began to approach him without him paying any attention to them. You girls shouldn't gang up on a man like that. A voice says behind the girls and they stop and turn to see who it is to find Shikamaru standing there. Before the girls could move or say anything his shadow possession jutsu traps them so they stand like he does. Now it's not nice to leave a man outnumbered lass, he says and brings his hand up to his tea making the girls do it also, the kunai still in their hands. Shikamaru moves his hand across his tea in one slick motion causing the girls to their trip then he slam a fist in his stomach causing them to themselves until they were lifeless as they dropped to the ground. What are you? Why are you here? Jiraiya groaned before he passed out watching Shikamaru walk towards him. Jiraiya woke up in the bed by the window, the sun shining into his eyes from the open window. He groaned as he slowly sat up and looked around to find Shikamaru sitting in a chair at a small table in the corner most likely writing his report to the Hokage. Jiraiya sighed and got to his feet as he walked over and looked over Shikamaru's shoulder to watch what he was writing. So you're starting the report already? Jiraiya whispered and Shikamaru didn't answer. He was pissed that Jiraiya would ruin the mission like this and wished he wouldn't have come on this troublesome mission in the first place. I already sent a letter to Temari and she's most likely on her way here to kill you for putting our lives in danger for your little book and women. Shikamaru says and keeps writing to Naruto ready to get this done and over with on his own. And now you're writing to Naruto to tell him of my mess? Jiraiya asks and Shikamaru nods his head yes slowly. I think you're doing this because I can get more ladies than you. Jiraiya says and backs up a step when Shikamaru rises to his feet and turns to face the Sannin. Yeah right, women are troublesome, I only need one in my life and she's on her way here. Shikamaru growls and Jiraiya shakes his head no while shrugging. I think you're jealous my women are better than yours. I'm not jealous of anything that you do in your life. It's not my fault that you're living in denial and that your lover, the god I'm SD because you weren't strong enough. Shikamaru growls, he knew he shouldn't have said all that but he was upset that Jiraiya had begun to bring Temari into this conversation. How dare you? Jiraiya starts but Shikamaru cuts him off by beginning to speak once more. No how dare you? Talking about other people's happiness and bringing it down since you don't have any, Shikamaru growls and picks up the letter and rolling it up. Have fun doing your part of the mission alone. He says before slamming the door behind him and heading into town. Jiraiya stood there speechless as he stared at the door in disbelief. He never knew Shikamaru had it in him to do anything like that. He was furious, how dare Jiraiya pull Temari into this? Shikamaru had nothing else to say to him and just wanted to get this done and over with. He sighed as he slowed to a halt as the people kept walking around him going about the normal lives. He didn't know what to do. For once he hadn't have thought far enough ahead to know what to do next only because his mind was too occupied. He looked around the town at all the signs for the shops and such and spotted a bar. If anything he could find some information in there leading to at least some kind of clue about Orochimaru's plans as he went inside and found that it was jammed-packed full of people. He smiled at this as he quickly closed the door behind him ready to get the show on the road. Jiraiya didn't know what he should do about what Shikamaru had said. Of course the Junin was right but how could he ever apologize for what he had done? He quickly walked through the crowd now disguised as a black-haired man who was a little titan and was dressed like a normal person. He sighed when he couldn't find him so he decided to check inside some buildings as he started with the places smart people gather to play show. He groaned when he still couldn't find him and stood on the edge of town staring into the crowd. He froze when he felt a hand on his shoulder as Jiraiya's head whipped around to find Temari standing there. Her hair is down and she's wearing a kimono with SS on each side. Where is he? She growls lightly and Jiraiya just stares at her, her eyes angry. Well he stormed off, I don't know where he is now, Jiraiya says and she grips his shoulder tighter digging her nails into him. I really don't know. After we got into a little spat about my accident, I brought you up in the argument and he got pissed. Jiraiya quickly stops when he realizes that he had told her the right thing instead of the wrong. Well, you're going to find him, she growls and drags him down the street. She was a furious woman and everyone cleared the way for her to pass as Jiraiya struggled to get free behind her. They had split up to search at least an hour ago and he was already tired and wanted to go back to the hotel, but every time he thought about it he would stop and think about Temari torturing him and snapping his N along with many other punishments the Sand Ninja would see fit. He knew that now that he was on her bad side he would be screwed for the rest of his life and even longer than that. Why'd he have to run off? Jiraiya mumbles and looks to the bar as he stopped in front of it and stared up at the sign. Information, he whispers to himself before he walks inside and looks around for Shikamaru to find the Junin sitting at the counter listening to the conversations around him, one hand holding a glass of sake up and the other resting on the table. His eyes were closed as he thought to himself. There he is, Jiraiya whispers and goes up behind Shikamaru and just looks at him knowing that Shikamaru knew he was there. What do you want? Shikamaru growls lightly and doesn't look to Jiraiya. Temari arrived a short while ago and demanded that I find you and apologize. Jiraiya says quietly and doesn't move an inch as Shikamaru thinks the information over in his head. Where is she? He asks and slowly opens his eyes and looks down into the half-full glass. It had taken him 3 hours alone to only drink half and now he would have to let it go to waste. Out looking for you, of course. Jiraiya says and backs up a step as Shikamaru gets to his feet in front of Jiraiya facing him. Well then might as well go find her. Shikamaru mumbles and begins to walk out but stops when Jiraiya begins to speak to him once more. About the whole Tsunade thing. Jiraiya whispers, his voice hinted with a bit of pain and agony. Everyone misses her. Shikamaru says simply before walking out and leaving Jiraiya alone in the bar with all the drunk Sound Ninja who aren't paying attention to anything. After a few minutes Jiraiya follows him out and goes the opposite way of him in search of Temari. She couldn't find him anywhere and it was beginning to piss her off. If Jiraiya hadn't said anything about her everything would be okay and she'd have him beside her. I mean I did rush here to see him after all, she thought to herself as she strolled along the outskirts of town looking for Shikamaru. She hadn't seen one trace of Jiraiya since she parted from him and was starting to wonder where the hell he had disappeared to in the hours that he had been alone. Temari stopped as she noticed the 4 men looking her up and down wondering if she should K them or not before beginning to walk again. Though she didn't have her large fan with her she had her smaller ones and a summoning scroll if she needed it. Hey babe, maybe you should come hang out with the real shinobi. One of the men say and step in front of her blocking her path. The other 3 then surround her also trying to cut off her path. Yeah, maybe you'd like to have some fun with us tonight. One of the other men say as she smiles and puts a hand on her hip and looks at them all. Well, I haven't had a good time in a while but I think I'll pass, I mean I have to get home to my husband. She says and he first ninja shakes his head no. Sorry honey, you're going to be staying with us for tonight. The first ninja smirks and Temari looks at him. Yet again another bad feeling just like the one before Shikamaru had and it made her uneasy. The ninja began to approach her and get closer and closer as she sighed lightly and pulled out her fans quickly and whipped them towards the ninja, the senbon inside the fans flying out and sticking into the ninja causing them to collapse to the ground as she stepped over them and put her fans away as she began to walk away from the mess. Amateurs, she whispers and continues her search unknowing that there was a lot more than 4 ninja nearby and before she could take another step she felt the senbon S into her back causing her to fall limp to the ground, her vision black and her body paralyzed. Shikamaru heard the thuds as he rushed towards them. He had speed walked to not draw attention but it had been fast enough that he had arrived there within 8 minutes of when he heard it. He stopped at the edge of the path when he spotted the 4 ninja lying on the ground unconscious with some of the senbon that had been sticking in them missing. He looked around and spotted a fan on the ground just a few steps away and hurried to it, leaning down and picking it up. After a moment he opened it and examined the pattern and noticed the senbon openings knowing it had been Temari's. Damn it. He growls lightly and looks down both ways of the path to find nothing and no clues of where Temari had disappeared to as he hurried back into town in search of Jiraiya and his missing wife all the while thinking how troublesome this mission had truly become. It was so cold, she just curled up into a ball as she slowly opened her eyes and looked around the room to find she was in a large freezer with nothing around her. Not to mention her dress was freezing since silk didn't hold heat well as she sat up, the chains on her wrists icy cold against her skin and chattering along as she rose. Where the hell am I? She growls lightly and gets to her feet and turns around in the room trying to figure out what to do next as she goes to the door examining it closely. If I stay in here much longer I might not survive. She took a few steps back and smiled as she readied herself to attack the door. She charged in and slammed herself into the door, the cold seeping into her skin and her shoulder becoming dark red from the impact as she tried to break it another 3 times but failed as she stumbled back and fell so she was sitting up with her knees bent up and her arms and hands in between her legs hanging limp. Have you given up yet, Sand Ninja? A voice says from the other side of the door. Temari's head snaps up to look to the voice to find Orochimaru opening the door and stepping in. Quite cold in here, he growls lightly as Temari pulls her legs together and rests her hands on top of them. Not very hospitable, are you? Temari growls lightly as Orochimaru approaches her with 5 ninja behind him blocking her way from the door. You know that the leaf and sand will come and kill you and all your minions since they have Kabuto for information. She growls lightly but Orochimaru laughs. What's so funny? You, my dear, you are the key to my survival along with the power to stop my plans. I needed bait and you came and offered yourself. Orochimaru says and smirks as her face pales and she stares at him in disbelief. Lord Orochimaru, Konoha has sent its reply. A 6th sound ninja stands behind the other 5 and Orochimaru smirks as he starts towards the door but stops before he goes in. Well, dear Temari, I hope you have a nice sleep here in our best room. I'll be sure to send food within the next 3 days. He says before exiting and locking the door behind him, leaving Temari alone in the freezer yet again to think. She groaned as she bowed her head and began to think of a plan. She had no weapons and no way out but the door, she had only a little chakra due to the lack of food and sleep and she had no idea where the hell this place was. Shikamaru, please hurry up, she whispers as she looks up at the ceiling and watches as the ice begins to thicken and then become sharp sickles as she gets an idea and jumps to her feet. I've got it, she whispers as she quickly gets one of the sickles and picks the locks with it. She smirks as the chains unlock and drop to the ground after a good 5 minutes of trying to lockpick the chains. Now for the door, she faces it and looks at the door trying to figure out what she should do. I think Orochimaru is the one who took her from town. Shikamaru said as he looked to Jiraiya. He had returned to the hotel room about a half an hour ago and began to think up plans to find Temari as Jiraiya had came in about 10 minutes ago. I wouldn't be surprised, we're in his territory after all and he must have found out about us snooping around on his grounds so he decided to get back at us. Jiraiya says and folds his arms across his chest as he leans against the wall. I received a letter from Naruto just a little while ago stating he had received a letter from Orochimaru and the sound on Temari's condition as their hostage and in order for us to get her back we have a few options. Find Itachi and deliver his body to Orochimaru, offer AS to him for his experiments, or KU Jiraiya and deliver your corpse to him personally. Shikamaru says and looks up at Jiraiya who is staring at Shikamaru in disbelief as he speaks about Sing the Sannin. What has Naruto said about his decision? Jiraiya asked and Shikamaru merely looked away. He said that it would be up to me. Shikamaru says simply and Jiraiya just stays quiet wondering what he might say. Don't worry though Jiraiya, I have a plan behind my actions. Thank God, for a minute there I thought you were going to offer me up as bait since you were still mad at me. Jiraiya says and goes quiet as Shikamaru said nothing in response. Who said I wasn't going to offer you up? X. That will be all for this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.